everybody to episode 2 of the Understable Minds. We have a special, newly crowned, understably minded folk with us. My name's Anthony.
That was quick.
Sitting to my front and left is Eric.
What's up?
Sitting to my front and right is our special guest for the episode. We've got Mr. AJ Risley. How's it going, AJ? The crowd in here is
go AJ!
losing their minds.
Attaboy Rick! Whoa, we snuck a Ricky Wysocki fan.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, you know, I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Yeah, I'm newly crowned. Is that what you said?
I think.
What? Oh,
I mean, is that? Do you want to be?
yeah, my mind is now flippy.
Yeah. Do you want to be?
Facts.
Are you newly knighted? Do you want to be? Are you like $1? You're a newly minted, understably minded folk. These are all actual words that make sense in the English language.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
So,
You're doing wonderful.
Thank you, both of you.
Yeah.
The crowd is now on my side.
Will somebody shut that fan?
Ricky fans.
Will somebody shut that fan off? I think we're. Oh, wait. Wait a minute.
I can shut your mic off. So
Actually, that reminds. Yeah, when I did the tour video, I'm using air quotes because I did a tour of the distribution center, and I'm like the least qualified person in Emporia to give a tour of the distribution center. I don't even live here, but I did have a conversation with a big fan.
Oh, was it one of our actual, like the ones on the roof, or the ones that are like on the ground?
Yeah, it was a big.
Because there's two styles of big fans here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, let me try to describe him. He said he liked music. He said he was a big metal fan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, big metal fan.
Classic.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug, for writing that joke for me.
That's
Right.
not shocking.
Please, let's move on.
So AJ is in town. You were just at USDGC, and if I understand correctly, you're headed back home to almost as far as you could possibly be from USDGC, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The San Diego County.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
county.
where I reside.
Aside from
Did
obviously,
they just get lazy when they named the county?
Kinda.
well, what came first? Was it the county or the city?
Well, either way, there's not too many places that have the city and the county being the same name, right?
I mean,
At least not where I grew up.
yeah.
Where I grew up, there was.
Was there? Okay.
So I grew up in a place called McHenry County.
So
and
that's
there is a McHenry city.
is the same city. I'm assuming the county's in that city. The city's in
The
that
city
county.
would be in the county,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't grow up in McHenry.
Yeah,
the
I
city.
think it might be. That's pretty consistent with Southern California too. We have Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard. There's a city called Los Angeles.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Wow. I thought that was
Riverside County.
Pretty small.
Or
Okay.
maybe it's San Bernardino County. I don't know. Or maybe there's both. Probably not both.
That might be.
But then also Orange County. And there's a
good movie.
City of Orange. Yeah, good movie. Yeah.
Colin Hanks.
Colin Hanks, Jack Black.
Tom Hanks' son.
Yes. But yeah, going back home to San Diego
Okay.
for the winter and for the off season.
Are you doing air quotes around winter again because Southern California just has one season?
Yeah,
And it's just beautiful,
yeah,
just all
kinda.
year.
It gets a little chilly. Air
Yeah,
quotes
more
around
air quotes.
quotes around chilly.
Rains a couple days a year, probably.
Yeah. Actually, I think we've been getting more rain recently for
Yeah?
some reason. Yeah.
Bummer, dude. Welcome to the rest of the world.
Well, but like here in Emporia, it was like I woke up and it was, I don't know if it was raining when I woke up, but it was definitely gloomy. And then just a few hours later, boom, bright sunshine, lovely day.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Hump day.
It is 72 degrees. It's very Southern California-y out there.
Yeah.
Southern California-esque.
Here in Emporia County.
It's not Emporia County. That was my whole argument earlier, but it's obviously
You're lying.
it doesn't
County.
apply to Kansas, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Maybe not.
Anyways.
So, AJ, you were out on the road for a little bit. You caught up with the tour in Delaware. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you had been off, for people that either weren't aware or may have forgotten, you had a wrist injury that's been bagging you. It's been bugging you for like the last, year and a half or so?
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah,
more than that, maybe?
about 2 years now.
Okay. Give us an update on that.
Update. Well, yeah, since I was last here in Emporia back in July for Junior Worlds, I've been Right after that, I went down to Pensacola, Florida. Spent about 5 weeks down there, doing some rehab on my wrist and forearm and elbow muscles. A lot of like work on my posture and just overall training. With Dr. Dan Jarbo. And he, as well as giving me like an exercise program to go through to get my wrist back in shape. He did a lot of like deep tissue massage in my forearms, and my shoulder and pecs that really helped like loosen a lot of things up and get my arm and my shoulder just a lot more free, like free of looser and free of tension. And then he also did some Graston, this technique called Graston and it was somewhat painful, slightly painful. It was basically, he took like this little metal scraper, like a little metal blade almost, pretty dull.
This is not starting off pleasant. This sounds painful. Yeah,
it was painful. And that's what he told me going into it, is like, we need to break up a lot of this muscle, like a lot of the scar tissue that's under the skin and around those muscle fibers and tendons. Yeah. And so in order to improve the circulation to that area. And so we would do that like twice a week, along with these really intense massages that were also kind of painful. Sure. But that was the whole point of going down there, was to kind of beat up. He would say it was just to beat up the wrist and the forearm area. Sure. But then do that to improve the circulation and then to put another emphasis on the recovery process, and paired that with a lot of other exercises and resistance training. And after 5 weeks with Dr. Dan, like you said, I rejoined the tour up in Delaware at the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, and then played the MVP Open at Maple Hill, the Green Mountain Championship, and the Music City Open. And I felt great. Good. Felt great for those 4 events. I was able to practice and compete and play all the rounds of the tournaments. And after each round, I felt fine. My wrist wasn't in pain. And I credit pretty much all of that to Dan helping me like get my body in prime condition, but then also kind of helping me work on the mental side of things when it came to preparation and warming up and cooling down and active recovery. Yeah. All the ins and outs of that. I've heard
it was great from like other professional athletes that have a major injury that you can physically work yourself back to where you were before, but mentally it's kind of hard to trust yourself. Like the one that comes to mind for me is Derrick Rose when he tore his ACL. He was like just a freak athlete, could run as fast as anybody, jump as high as anybody, could do anything. And then when he tore up his knee, coming back, he had to completely change his game because he couldn't physically, his knee was strong enough to be able to do all that stuff, but he just couldn't quite put himself there mentally to do that, or he was struggling with that, to be that same player, to be that same athlete again. Yeah. And so he worked on his outside shot. He worked on things that relied less on just pure athleticism.
Yeah. Less jumping.
So what was that process like for you? Did you going back into Delaware, were you thinking like, okay, I need to not throw hard, or I can't, this hole is pretty far. I used to be able to birdie it, but now I don't know. What was that like for you? You pretty much you kind of got in my head a little bit, because that was another big aspect of that rehab period was studying a bit of my form and studying a bit of other players' forms. A few times I watched a clinic video featuring Paul Ulibarri and Brian Earhart that's out on the Gatekeeper Media YouTube channel. And they did a really good job of breaking down like the fundamentals of the backhand form.
They spoke a lot about the forehand form as well. And so I took a lot of that information and also watched a lot of coverage from the big tournaments during that time. I think it was like D-Glow and Preserve and Ledgestone and Idlewild. I was studying all the Jomez videos and Gatekeeper videos from that and just trying to watch people's forms and find like the little intricacies and try to isolate the details that I had been thinking about within my own form.
Right.
And the big things that I eventually like centered on was my hip rotation and using that factor in order to influence the rest of my throw and basically take a lot of pressure off of my shoulder and the rest of my arm.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a lot of, and that was like a big mental hurdle to go through. I mean, like, and like what you described with Derek, with D Rose,
Hey.
you know, it's coming back into throwing full power definitely I was very cautious.
Sure. Because that's probably the most disc golf you've played in whatever that is, a couple months span since your injury. Since, you know, in the last 2+ years, you probably haven't played, regardless of what level we're talking. But I mean, you probably haven't played that much disc golf since then, I would imagine.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I would say like in between. Well, so I played the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, and my previous tournament that I competed in and finished was the Preserve Championship a year before. So it was about 13, almost 14 months before that. And so I had that gap where I didn't play any tournament golf. I had played practice rounds and played like a few ice bowls.
Sure.
But I do also remember during that period going to a lot of physical therapy appointments, and my physical therapist would tell me, hey, on the days that you come here, do not go out and throw later in the day. So yeah, like you said, like playing consecutive days in a row, especially on big courses like Iron Hill, like Maple Hill, the 2 courses at Smugs, like it was a lot. And there was a lot of thought that went into how I was going to attack those courses. And you know, and that was like a really big mental obstacle that I threw in there that I really wasn't expecting. I didn't exactly plan for that during the rehab process.
Right.
So when I look back on my performance during those events, I'm a little bit disappointed that I missed cash at all those.
Sure.
Like at first, emotionally, I'm disappointed in that. But as I think about it more and more, it's much easier to accept because it's a whole different beast to compete in an event and throw shots rather than just go out to the field or and throw discs and go out to the pitch and putt course and throw discs. So it was like D Rose went through. It's like there was a lot of new information that I was processing while I was out on the course in those big pressure situations. I recognized after the fact that was probably the biggest detriment to my performance during that little stretch was just thinking about my footwork and thinking about my reach out rather than my reach back or my my extension with my arm during that final step of the run up. It was a lot to think about. And so, you know, I realize now that it's natural to have inconsistent results when we're distracted like that. And again, that makes it easier to accept it makes it even more valuable to accept because I realize that, well, this is not just one tiny isolated incident. There's plenty of past context that is going into just about every throw. And then there's a future. I have a future and so that helps me plan ahead for next time and for next season and for the off season and what I want to accomplish. It's it's a lot.
So let me ask you this question. I know a few years back, at least, you used to really love the Enforcer. As a matter of fact, I want to say you're one of the players that coined the term mango. The mango from the mango enforcers that we had out there for a while. And, you know, I've been out, I was in Nashville, played a practice round with you, a USDGC, we threw some shots together, and it seemed like you were leaning more on the Maverick right now. Has this injury completely changed your bag of rounds? Like, what is some new staples that are in your bag now? Are you still really, I guess, leaning on that Enforcer? I know you used to throw a lot of overstable stuff. Have you seen, since the injury, more understable discs making your bag?
Yeah, a few more. Definitely. I mean, Mavericks have been in my bag since day one, since the, you know, I remember Danny bringing Mavericks to us at the Jonesboro Open in 2018, and the first one that he gave me that I tested out is still in my bag right now, and
Nice.
I'm still throwing it.
Awesome.
But I would say like my delivery with those Mavericks is evolving a little bit. And as far as like different discs go, I've been throwing the Vandal a lot. Vandals, it's like a faster Maverick. And then the Grace. I've thrown that new Royal Grace quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I would say like some new understable discs, some new additions. But really it's more like the delivery and the release of the disc. I'm trying to incorporate a bit more hyzer into my game and focus a bit more on trying to take advantage of like the hyzer flip distance lines.
Yeah, as opposed to just full on mashing the disc.
Yeah.
Super hard and flat.
Yeah.
Right.
Before I would throw a lot of shots that we would call force flex shots.
Right. You used to kind of hit it hard and kind of come over the top on it.
Right.
With something like Eric said, like an Enforcer or something more overstable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was, and I had developed that over time because I was really using the shoulder muscles to really power the throw and power a lot of the throw. And so now that I've studied a bit more and tried to bring that into my own game, and like when I say yes, like I study other players' forms and then I try my best to study my own form. And so what I'm realizing is that when we engage the hips a lot more, the upper body is kind of like a sling, and it's not exactly like, it's not, the power is not exactly generated from the shoulders as much as it is from the hips. And so that has kind of influenced how, like, the positioning of my shoulder and elbow right before the release. And so that's kind of what has led to those hyzer flip shots.
Nice.
Yeah. So is that, I mean, it sounds like that's a thing you've been working on. Is that something you're still working on, or are you kind of at a spot where you've got it nailed down and you're just trying to take, like you said, rather than focusing on reaching back and focusing on your release point and things like that, kind of trying to turn that into muscle memory? Or are you still tweaking things and finding, like, if I reach back here, if I reach back there, where in that process are you at?
I think I'm a bit closer to developing the muscle memory. I think I did a pretty good job in Pensacola, and then that month or so on the road, figuring out what I needed to do. And so there was a lot of analyzation. And so the analytical part of my mind was working really hard. And now I think I'm starting to balance that out with a bit more of the intuitive part of my mind that kind of takes over. And that's what we, is also referred to as muscle memory. Like our muscles don't remember things.
Right.
It's our brain that controls the muscles that remembers those things. And then once we
switch that, should we call it organ memory?
Organ memory. I mean, I don't know.
Organ to muscle communication memory. That doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well.
Not well, but it works.
I think it's more accurate. So really, what are we going for here?
Well, that's the thing, is if we want to get like truthfully scientific about it, it's not going to roll off the tongue smoothly. It's not. We probably won't find that alliteration.
Right.
But it's like it's the I don't know. It's like the part of our subconscious that controls the muscles that we just don't really realize.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of subconscious training.
Sure.
But I feel like I'm closer to that right now.
Cool.
Like I feel like when I started to analyze the form a lot more specifically and in detail, I was trying to figure out what my left foot and my left leg was doing, trying to get, and also figure out how can I engage the left hip. Watching a few of Danny's videos, the physics of form really helped with that. Those were videos that I also watched alongside that clinic video during that time. And so that I was focused on that, and then focusing on reaching out and when to reach out. And then also I'm still trying to get my left arm engaged in the way that a lot of players do. And so, but I feel like I'm just about past that step of that analytical phase and trying to define the throw. And so now I'm really, I'm focusing more on implementing it. It's not, I mean, not exactly unfortunate, but maybe it is. But I'm planning on going home and taking 8 weeks to rest even more and do like an 8-week shutdown period where I don't throw at all. Yeah. So I'm going to have to fill my time elsewhere when it comes to implementing that new knowledge. So
now will that include putting? Are you putting putting in that same category?
With the shutdown?
The entire shutdown. Are you not even going to touch a disc that entire time, or will you throw some putts here and there?
I mean, right now it feels smart to touch 0 discs, because I mean, like my instincts and desires are to throw the disc. Like even if I'm sitting on the couch and holding the disc, I'm going to be tossing it up in the air. I'm going to be like spinning it on my finger. And it's, with the tendons and the repetitive use, that's what caused the injury. So I think it's going to be tough, but I think, I need to stay away from the discs for 8 weeks. And so, I mean, it's like, I've been kind of wrestling with that decision, recently, because I know that from experience, like finding a groove is pretty valuable to performance on tour. I recognized it early on, when I would play for like 10 days in a row or more. When I took a day off, I would think like, oh man, I'm out of my groove. And so, but maybe that's something that I can look back on that and learn from it and learn how to stay in the groove, even while staying away from the disc.
Yeah. It's gotta be especially hard for you to take time off in the off season. Like we were talking about earlier, it's so nice in San Diego. It is easy for Eric and I to not play disc golf in the winter because it's miserable outside. It's like 20 degrees, either snowing or wet or windy or whatever. No,
or dark at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Right? Yeah, you couldn't pay me to go outside and play disc golf right now. It's very easy for me to not touch a disc for 8 weeks. Yeah. But if it was like today, where it's sunny and 72 degrees, it'd be like, man, this is tough. I want to go do this thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I remember the past few years taking full advantage of my off season and making every day count, whether it was putting practice or field work or the occasional practice round here and there. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult, and yet I've already started planning for that. I've got like I flipped right to it in my little notebook here. I've got an off-season calendar with 8 weeks blocked out, and I've got I mapped out some workout sessions that I'm that I took from past Disc Golf Strong programs and built up my own program. And then also wrote out like a typical daily schedule, hour by hour, and then a proposed diet. So like I'm already starting to think about how I'm going to fill all that time without the disc. So yeah, it's going to be kind of difficult because I mean, I know I want to throw,
right.
And I want to putt and I want to get in that groove. So I just need to, I know that in order to like fight that urge, I got to fill my time with other things. I think Eric and I were talking about this yesterday on the phone. It's like if you, I don't know. Yeah. If you feel like quitting one thing, the best way to do so is to have a replacement. Like, so say you're trying to break a habit,
right?
The best, like one of the most effective ways to do so is to build a complementary habit,
right?
Or
Find
a
new habit.
habit.
Find something else to do at that time.
A new hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
what's your new hobby going to be?
My new hobby is going to be working out, training, walking.
So you're going to come back next year like looking like Ezra, just yoked.
Ripped.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. That's my goal. Honestly, like that's my goal. I mean, when I was down in Pensacola, like it hit me like, again, I mean, I've already kind of made this distinction, but I'm a professional athlete. That's my job title. That's my career. And that's who I am.
Right.
And so I ought to do things that build that definition of professional athlete. Or when I see myself doing things or getting in new hobbies or routines and whatnot, it's like I look at it through the lens of a professional athlete.
Right.
And so also with my physical appearance, but really just my strength and my physique and my overall fitness level. That's my goal, is to be on that level of a professional athlete.
I feel like disc golf is kind of reaching that point where that kind of eureka moment that you were talking about is becoming more and more common for players because it's more feasible. Like, not to slight you or anyone that you played with when you were on the road, Eric, but like back then it wasn't so much like you were an athlete competing professionally in the sport of disc golf, but it was a lot more of like, I need to play well at this tournament so I can afford gas and food to get to the next one so that I can play that one to win and get gas and food and whatever.
100%.
Whereas now, like AJ's talking about, where it's a lot more of like, this is my job. I am a professional at this thing. You don't look at golfers or NFL players or whatever and think, man, if he doesn't get an interception this week, he's probably not putting food on his table.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas
Can you imagine
there
that?
was a point in time not that long ago for disc golf where that was the case.
Yeah, 100%. And look at it now. There's $250,000 on the line coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe it already happened. I don't know when this episode's going out.
Depending on when people hear this.
This episode
Rick.
this episode probably already went out. How did you know? That's who I picked. If you would have listened to yesterday's episode.
Oh, that's a good pick. I mean, can you tell us like what were off seasons like when you were out on tour from that time frame from like 2005 to 2015?
Yeah, 2003.
2003
was the first year I went on the road.
Jeez, they had discs back then?
Yep.
Yeah, back in those days,
in
the
my days.
frisbees were made out of wood.
No, that's not entirely true.
You just
but,
cut a slab off of a tree and then just chuck it.
Yeah.
Before each tournament, I have to carve my distance drivers out.
That's pretty close.
Is that how you got into
Pretty
course
close to
design? You're
accurate.
like, I need a disc, and that tree's kind of like right in my line. So if I just cut that one down, make a disc
and then
out
I'm
of
like,
wood.
man, look at that fairway now. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right up my alley.
Sorry, my mind got a little understable there for a
it
second.
sure did.
He did it. He said the show.
Welcome.
He said the show.
He said the name.
But
Welcome.
yeah, okay, so what were the off seasons back then?
Back then, for sure. I mean, a lot of the off season was spent trying to find ways to not just work on your game or parts of your game that suffer, but find ways to make money.
Yeah.
You know, like if it's a part-time job, or like I had part-time jobs when I was out on tour, like when I would come home, have a spot to go work. And then, you know, thankful to Jeremy Rusko, actually, who the business was going strong and, you know, started in 05. So like from 06, 07 through my career, I had the opportunity to work for him and do some things like dyeing discs or whatever it was. But you're absolutely right. There had to be ways to make money because we were not getting a salary. You know, we weren't getting a monthly stipend. We didn't have a credit card, you know, and honestly, back then, if you had your name on a disc, you won a world title.
Right.
That's it. There were no team series or no tour series discs like that, you know? And so it was definitely a lot more niche back then than obviously it is now. It's still, I mean, we're still in our infant stage, in my opinion, of the sport, of where it could be and where it potentially will go. But I mean, playing for $250,000 at like the Pro Tour finale is mind blowing to me, because I mean, geez, that's so much money. I mean, that's life changing money. $30,000 for first place is life changing money,
right?
To almost whoever wins it.
Right.
There's a couple people in that field that probably like they win it and it's like, meh, throw it on the pile.
Yeah.
Sure. But
sweet.
even
Another
still,
another tour series check.
Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right. But yeah, having the ability to play for that kind of money in front of that many people. I mean, at USDGC, it was insane. The crowd on that final day, as AJ can attest to this, was just, it felt good.
Yeah.
Like we were on the other side of the lake when Paul hit his big putt, and the roar from that crowd that you could just hear get closer and closer and louder was like chills.
Yeah.
It was epic.
That's so cool.
For sure. Electric. I mean, I don't know if did you see I made an Instagram post
of the
yesterday.
Missed putt? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
That would have been like,
Yeah, come on, Paul. What the heck,
my
dude?
ears would have been like ringing.
Oh, you wouldn't have been able to hold that camera
days.
still. You would have needed a gimbal or something, because
Yeah. You're probably right.
Or if he rang up the playoff hole, just walk off ace.
just walk off ace.
Because he was off by like,
I couldn't tell how close
6
that
inches.
was, but
It
we
was
were on the other
not
side of the
far.
lake, but we could see the discs coming in, and you could judge by the crowd,
Yep.
crowd noise of what was happening.
Oh, well,
so,
and let's not forget Worlds this year.
oh yeah,
that roar was humongous.
that was probably honestly the loudest roar in disc golf.
Yeah.
I would say. Like,
yeah, it would have to be.
I think so.
yeah. Well,
Like-
I mean, even more than this year, which I wasn't at Worlds, so I don't know how many people were in that gallery, but there was, I mean, thousands of people at USCGC, which I assume it was the same at Worlds, but
It had to be. But they had those bleachers
Yeah,
set
those
up.
think about it.
Everybody else
That's
was
going to be the
there.
norm now for
Yeah.
like world champion, like event.
Well,
like,
hold on.
well, Emporia is hosting Worlds next year, so we're going to be prepared for this.
Right.
But for future events, future companies or organizations or clubs that are running Worlds, be prepared for thousands of spectators, and you have to be ready to be able to separate the players from
Right.
that crowd, and that is not going to be easy.
Yeah, there was. Man, I forget the guy's name that works for the PDGA, but he's at all
Todd
of the
Lyons?
events. It might be.
I don't
I
know,
forget.
Just throwing the name out there.
Yeah, you could just make one up and it'll sound right to me.
Okay.
But there's a video that somebody put out of Paul making that final putt, and like he's sitting there watching to see if the putt goes in, and then immediately him and then like a couple guys next to him all just immediately turn around, put their
Yeah.
arms out, and they're just like keeping people
Yeah.
back because they don't want that, fans rushing the field after
Yeah.
Texas A&M beats Alabama. They don't
Roll
want
Tide.
that moment. Yeah, roll tide. They don't. Yeah,
They got rolled.
roll on home.
Gig 'em? Is that what their Texas A&M
I
says?
think you're right. Yeah,
I think so.
they got a few because they're like the original home of the 12th man
Yes, they are.
thing.
Yep.
Allegedly.
But I mean, professional athletes. That's what that's what the tour is made up of, just about now. I mean,
That's so true.
And if not, I mean, the players better start thinking of it that way.
Right. I think the ones that don't will just inevitably get left behind.
Yeah.
At some point, it's just the game will pass them. And if you're not, on that leading edge, kind of not necessarily pushing the game forward, but like
What's pushing yourself?
Taking
forward.
care
if
of
you're
yourself.
not matching that, then you're just going to get walked past.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to adopt and taking into this off season is that's my main focus is being a professional athlete and, you know, molding my days around that sentiment. And
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, you have to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then using that and then trying to also like express that to people, because I feel like we've got a few touring players that do live and breathe like that, in that professional athlete mindset. Of course, I would say some of the top three, Eagle, Paul, Eagle, and Ricky, or Eagle, Ricky, and Paul, or Ricky, Paul, and Eagle. It changes a lot,
Right.
But those three, I would say they embody a professional athlete, or that they are just about as close to professional athletes as we have in the sport.
Right.
And I could state my case by showing you like their routines, and showing you and telling you about their diet and their, you know, practice regimen or training regimens, and then the things that I don't know, like their mentalities about their performance, and about, you know, in the moment and outside of the moment, and everything that goes into it. But it's a lot. But then you really you get out what you put in as well.
Completely.
So
how does that factor or play into you and your mentality? Does knowing what Eagle's diet is like and what his practice routine is like, and you know what kind of work Paul is putting in when, you know, whatever, you know, and what time he wakes up and goes to bed, and how often he's putting or doing this or doing that, does that influence you at all? Does that wake you up in the morning and say, okay, I got to go to the gym because I know Paul's in the gym right now, and then when I'm done at the gym, I need to go putt because I know Eagle's already made 100 putts today, and if I eat 2 slices of pizza instead of 1 today, then now I know that I'm going to be falling behind in this aspect or that.
Right.
Or are you more of like, you know, I'm going to find what works for me, and then if that influences what Paul does, because now Paul knows AJ Risley's doing this, then that is his deal. I'm kind of just doing what's best for me. Where is that at for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a balance. Obviously, it's a balance of the two. I do try to, and I think when we look at others and compare, we do have to remain balanced, and we can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like when we look externally and try to use those examples and only those examples, we can kind of fall into some hurtful habits. And then conversely, if we just look at ourselves without any comparison of the outside world, then who knows if we're on the right track, or if we're on a path that would lead us somewhere completely different. So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, I do a bit of both, because I want to learn from others and learn from the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the basis of just logic in general, is that we take information from the past and we apply it to the present, and we then come up with new logic that is then is what is, in the future is seen as past logic and is used in the present. So yeah, I mean, I look at like the disc golf strong training programs that I know Eagle has partook been a part of, and same with Rick. Attaboy, Rick.
Attaboy.
And so yeah, I mean, I've used a lot of that to mold my practice or my training programs after.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mean, diet is a little bit is a lot broader. So it's, I don't have to look exactly at like what is Eagle putting in his smoothies, or
sure,
do I need to buy a case of Celsius, like, like the energy drink that Paul drinks or
right,
whatnot. But I'll take like little tips from those guys here and there. Like we mentioned Ezra before, I might get into garbanzo beans over the off season.
Just
who
big
knows?
bags of them.
Just all beans.
And I don't think it's necessarily like following a certain player.
Right.
of what their habits are, what their goals and aspirations are. It's kind of like a lot of it is it's different for person to person.
Right.
You know, what's best for you isn't necessarily best for someone else either.
Yeah. Because if I like following someone else's example too closely, I lose part of myself, or I lose sight of myself. Right. And then I lose some self-confidence. Because if I, we're confident in what we trust, and we trust what we know. And so if I know something else or someone else, then that's less of me to know and trust and feel confident in. And that is like a foundation. It's like one of the cornerstones of becoming a successful golfer and a successful athlete is that self-confidence.
Right. I think that's a really important point, what you just said, because if you were to model your exercise routine after Ezra, and you were to model your footwork after, I don't know, Matty O, and you modeled your backhand after Double G, and you modeled your sidearm after Big Germ, then like those people don't all do the same things the same. They do it the best way that works for them. And like, you're not Double G, you're not Big Germ. Those two are wildly different physically. Big Germ is 6'6", Double G might be 5'6", right? And so he's not actually 5'6".
He's like 5'10".
He's definitely taller than that.
5'9", something like that.
But like,
I see what you're saying.
What works for him, it would be like trying to take puzzle pieces from different puzzles and make a picture out of it. It's just never going to work.
Right.
So yeah, I think.
But it is a part of that analytical phase that I spoke about earlier. And so what comes after that is the intuitive phase, and applying and using all that knowledge and applying it to myself, or letting my subconscious run with all the context that my conscious and my prefrontal cortex has gathered. So yeah, I mean, it's a full-time job. It's
right.
And really it's, I definitely deal with some of the pressures of, the context of my situation and calling myself a professional athlete and professional disc golfer. I also have to include in that description for myself that I'm injured and that I'm recovering from an injury.
Right.
Because that then helps explain it a little bit further. And so I, can kind of cast aside the doubt.
Right. Yeah.
Because let's be real. It's like the ratings update was yesterday, Tuesday, and I dropped another 5 points. I'm 974 rated right now. And I finished I had some pretty terrible finishes in those 4 events that I played. And so, from the outside, it's really easy to kind of point a finger and ask, well, are you really a professional athlete? Like, look at your results.
Right.
Like, and this is all like made up stuff in my own head.
Yeah. Well, ratings are also ratings.
Ratings are ratings. Yeah.
Ratings are what you've done, not what you're currently doing.
What rating would you give ratings?
Out of how many?
I mean,
out of
on
how
the
many
disc golf
points?
scale. What rating does the rating system get?
Yeah, I'd say ratings are like 850 rated, but rankings are those are like 1030 rated.
I think on the amateur level, the rating system is solid.
So
like a solid 1,000 rated round.
Okay, so if we're rating the amateur ratings as a professional rating,
yes, 100%.
Connect those dots, people.
Yes, it makes sense. If your ratings.
So then what rating does the professional ratings
416.
So the professional ratings rate as an amateur rating, but the amateur
less
ratings
than an amateur rating.
are like a beginner.
Yes, like
young
first
juniors.
time picking up a disc at a sanctioned event with your PDGA number. That's the equivalent in my mind.
So then the overall ratings rating would just be like what, like mediocre, like 800. Like kind of AM2 level.
Yeah, I think so. On now that's on.
Yeah, they got a lot of work to do.
They do.
They've
only been playing for like a year or two.
Those dang ratings.
They're getting up to like 300, 350.
Sure.
Making some putts.
Whatever. I just think ratings should go away. That's just my own personal opinion.
I wonder what ratings would rate Eric's rating at.
Don't really care, to be honest with you. I just think that ratings aren't on the professional side of things. A rating has nothing to do with a player.
Right.
Has nothing to do with how quality a player is, what they're capable of doing every week. Like, look at me. I'm a 1034 rated player, and there's no way I'm a 1034 rated player.
Right. That's true.
Get out of here. But I'm being honest here. Like, it's silly. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
In my opinion, is dumb. I think they need to move away from them. And I just think it's silly.
Mm-hmm.
We can move on to a different topic though.
Okay. So AJ, you had a couple topics that you very briefly described to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to pick one of those and we can jump into it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. The pace of play on the course. When I was playing, in the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge rounds 2 and 3, the tournament director approached my group and asked us very politely. He asked us, "Could you please pick up the pace?" 2 days in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
Why are you so slow, AJ?
I think it's. I mean, if I had to answer that question, it would just be because of my routine. And
so was it actually because you were taking too long? Is that, or was it just a thing of like, hey guys, I'm just going through the course, making sure people speed it up?
Well, that's how it felt.
Sure.
To me,
right? Because you're the common denominator.
Well,
there.
yeah. When I have,
right.
Was anybody else on the card both days? That you don't have to name the person. But...
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But even and then even the first day, like maybe after 6 or 7 holes, the group behind us caught up to us. And
how many how many holes were in front of you? Like gaps?
At least one.
So you never had to wait.
2.
You never had to wait. You just always got to the tee and you were good to go. Green light. Let's go.
Most times. Yeah. So, I mean, and then when I looked at it and was thinking and was trying to observe our group playing, it felt like we were pretty punctual and we were, paying attention. It's not like we were, having conversations on the tee pad and in the fairways when nobody was throwing, like when you're sitting at the red light and you're looking around like, who's going right now? Nobody's going. What's
awkward
going
moment
on?
At a stop sign where both people wave the other person and then nobody goes and then you both go and then you both stop. And then,
right.
Yeah.
It was not that. Like we were moving along. We had a a steady pace.
Right.
And so it just like I had emotional reactions to it, a lot of like really like kind of dark thoughts because it was like a, unfamiliar situation to be in, because I hadn't experienced it in over a year. And so I just recognized it a lot stronger in those moments. But then when I looked around and tried to like observe the group, we were all doing the same things. We were all ready to throw our shots. We were all looking down the fairways, trying to plan out what we were going to do. It could have just been that, at Iron Hill, one of the longest, most wooded courses that is on tour, if not just like in the country, it's a really difficult course.
It's a beast.
Yeah. And so, I mean, our groups, we were hitting trees and we were ending up in a lot of like tricky spots where the line is not clear. It's not like obvious, like, oh yeah, here we go. Easy hyzer right here. It's like, okay, I'm right behind this tree. So I'm stretching out and I'm throwing this shot and I still have 400 feet to go on this par 4. And there's 10 trees within like within 30 feet of me. So I got to find a gap and like, what disc am I going to throw? Oh wait, no, I'm not throwing an air shot. I'm throwing a forehand roller out of here. And it's like all these different things that just kept piling on and piling on. And I mean, I think if anything, we were dealing with that adversity with a very positive attitude. And so maybe that's what was slowing the groups behind us down, was that we were, we were still enjoying our day and enjoying our company, which is like, that's kind of the point of disc golf is to, yeah, it's to finish the course in the least amount of strokes possible, but it's also a chance to enjoy nature, enjoy life, enjoy other people. And so, I mean, it's not like it was a terrible experience overall, but it was just a kind of an eye-opening experience. And I think I just remember, I don't know, I think one of the guys in my group one of those days said, well, maybe we're not playing too slow. They are just playing too fast. And so when you kind of like isolate that from the context of disc golf and you just say it out loud, like, and maybe you take out playing, it really was kind of like it kind of got the gears turning. And, you know, I was starting to like leave the course with those thoughts and apply it to everything else. And like, you know, why do people tailgate when we're out on the road, or like just all sorts of stuff? Like, is someone really like, when we see someone that we think is moving or living too slow, like maybe we're moving too fast. And of course it's all relative. And
sure.
And, you know, and that situation is also kind of relative and pretty specific. Like in a practice round, if I'm playing slow, I'll just tell the people, yeah, oh yeah, hey, there you are. Go ahead and play through.
Yep. Yeah.
That's fine.
No big deal.
If I'm driving down the highway and there's 4 lanes and I'm going the speed limit and the Corvette is going like 100, it's like, yeah, I'll just move over a lane.
Right.
I'll just shift lanes.
I'll get out of your way.
It's different though than when I'm driving down the freeway and there's 2 lanes and there's semis that, you know, or whatever. And so then, you know, comparing the practice round to the tournament round, it's like, yeah, we're driving down a 1-lane road. So are you really going to be like if you're tailgating me for, you know, 30 minutes and you realize that I'm going the speed limit, like who's at fault here? You know, if I'm, and that's really kind of what got me like, and I was thinking about like creating this narrative in my head the whole time and just like really over analyzing it. But I was thinking like, if I'm playing disc golf and I'm playing disc golf within my allotted time and doing so like deliberately and not just farting around and throwing my, you know,
right, then you're good.
Throwing my round, then who's at fault here?
Right.
Is it me? Is it me, or is it the other person? Is, you know, and so it was just like kind of tough because I want to remain free of like accusing other people of
Sure.
something, because I'm like feeling the accusation as I'm trying to think about my footwork,
Right.
and my arm placement and my angle release and all these things that should be subconscious. And guess what? That's why I'm playing slow, because I'm thinking about all these details. And so, oh yeah, you throw in another another detail that has a personality, that's going to make the job so much harder. It's like,
Right.
if you're tailgating me and you then turn your high beams on and I'm blinded, what the am I going to do? You know?
Yeah.
So it was tough. And
You brake check them.
kind of, yeah. Or on the disc golf course, you throw your shot and then you like turn around and stare someone down. But like, what does that do? Then you get into an accident. Then you get rear-ended and you start.
Was the group behind you like frustrated with your guys' play? Could you tell that they were like frustrated that you guys were playing quote slow?
A couple times.
You could tell that for sure.
I could tell for sure. Actually, yeah. I mean, during that first round when the group caught up to us like 6 holes in, there was one guy who would walk halfway down the fairway after, you know, as soon as his group got to the tee, and we were still like throwing our approach shots, and oh, there he is, like 100 feet away, just like, he wasn't like staring us down or anything, but his presence was felt. And then
and this person was frustrated. You could tell, or was it? Were
Right,
they
'cause they
playing the
got-
course blind and just wanted to check out landing zones? Because I have absolutely done that before.
Oh yeah.
Right. No, it was. No, it was not someone who was playing the course blind, and I don't think he was frustrated. I mean, his personality on the course is very intense and might give off that like air of frustration. But he was on a heater. He played an amazing round that round, and so maybe it was just part of the.
Yeah.
Right. He was kind of in his
part of
zone
his
and just
method.
wanted to go.
But in my mind, I was assuming that he was frustrated.
Yeah,
But
I get that.
And then, but then there was like the next day, I'm after hole 18, I get off, and then the group behind us is right there, and a guy in the group misses a putt, and he misses a putt, and he's just like, like just like as loud as possible, like. Yeah, and I could feel the frustration, and I remember previously in the round, like doing that thing where I would like I threw a terrible tee shot, and I was pissed because I could feel the people behind me just like pressing, and so I turned and looked and kind of admittedly kind of tried to stare someone down, and I could tell that this was the same guy, and he was pissed. So, and I don't know. I just, I don't, it's kind of scary to think that that's where the sport is headed. I'm not saying that it for sure is, but there's other evidence out there that kind of makes me think that that's almost where it's headed, is like, hey, it's like just like really macho and trying to like
Bully,
exhibit strength and bullying, almost intimidation factors. But golf is a much different sport than most of the sports where that intimidation factor is valued.
Sure.
So I don't really think that it's as effective to try to intimidate your fellow golfer, because we all share the same opponent, the course.
Right.
Until, of course, you're in that sudden death playoff, and then you
flex on them.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it is. It does get
You
to
go
be a
full
little
Macy
bit different.
Walker on them. Just
So we've got a couple minutes left. Is the other topic that you've got in here something that we could talk about quickly, or is that a more in-depth thing we should save for another time?
It's probably in depth. I mean, it has to do with experience in disc golf and experience in like at the USDGC to get even, hyper specific. So yeah, I mean, we could
give
try
us,
to,
give
let's
us
just
like
hop in on it.
a quick, let's
sure.
get like a 5-7 minute thing.
Which means we're not going to hear the last 3, but that's fine. Go ahead.
I mean, experience in disc golf, what is the value of that experience? How do we define that specific kind of value? And then once we do so, how do we apply that? When do we apply that experience, and when do we see that experience kind of come shining through? Again, going back to USDGC and this and the sudden death playoff between Paul McBeth and Kyle Klein, obviously Paul McBeth is much more experienced in those situations than Kyle Klein is.
Right.
So, what was it that shows that Paul McBeth is more experienced? I mean, but then kind of zoom out and think, well, besides that particular sudden death playoff, when does the more experienced player tend to excel, or when does the inexperienced player excel?
Yeah, because that's another thing where there's some people that are just freaks of nature that, Patrick Mahomes comes to mind. He was a rookie, didn't play, came out his next year, and then just lit the world on fire. But then there's guys that have been in the league for 5-10 years that have been there, done that. They've been on this team, they've been on that team, they've played 100 some odd games.
Yeah.
And they're just not quite comfortable in that situation where it's, 2-minute offense. We've got 40 seconds left and we've got to drive down the field, get a field goal, where it just is not. Some people just naturally seem to have that. And yeah, I feel like in terms of disc golf, I feel like Paul is one of those people where it's almost like they thrive under the pressure of like, now it's a playoff. Now is when it really matters. And that's just the extra fire that they need. But yeah, it's a really weird thing where it's almost like you don't feel the lack of experience, right? You don't know that you're missing the experience. You don't know it's hard to quantify what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very real thing, but I'm sure if you were to ask, Ricky, Paul, Eagle, James Conrad, whoever, this is the 5th time you've played in the World Championships. What does your experience on the last 4 do for you this time? I'm like, well, it doesn't do much, right? It's a different course. I've played a bunch of events. I've played with these people before. I'm still nervous because it's Worlds. But if you were to ask someone their first time, they would give you a similar answer, even though they're not. Like they wouldn't be the same. I can't find the words for it, but the kind of the emotion behind like, oh, I've played events before, I'm totally comfortable, versus someone like Paul saying, yeah, I've played events before, I'm totally comfortable. It would be a different level of comfort that you don't. It's not like you're uncomfortable in the beginning or when you're inexperienced. You're just that much more comfortable when you have the experience.
Yeah, I think like the breadth of what you experience is much narrower in the beginning. And so then when I think when it comes to like applying that experience in those performance situations, the people who excel are focused on the positive qualities, and they're focused on what they are attempting to accomplish. And so, if once we gain more experience, there's inevitably going to be negative experiences and things that we, will impact us those negative experiences will have an impact. Mm-hmm. And so then it comes down to, and then in that scenario, I think the more experienced individual has a much better, they have a more detailed description of time. And so then that kind of helps take a little bit of pressure off of those negative experiences. And then with less pressure and less tension, they're able to see the positive meaning and positive value behind the negative experience. And then they can learn from it. And then they are able to put those visualizations into a different perspective and just have like a more detailed image of that in their mind. And that is what leads them to then focus on the positive qualities of what they're trying to accomplish. So, but then you could look at the inexperienced individual, and if they've never really experienced anything negative on the course, mm-hmm. then it's almost as if they have the same ability to focus on the positive qualities of what they're trying to accomplish. So, but then I think they're much more susceptible to like kind of plummeting, when misfortune occurs. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, cool. I'm glad we were able to squeeze that in there. AJ, I'm glad you were able to squeeze this into your time while you are here in Emporia.
Yeah.
Eric, thanks for hanging out, dude.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
Look at him. He's so pleased right now.
I'm so pleased to be here.
We're pleased that you decided to listen this far into the podcast, or just listen in general, really.
True.
Is pretty cool. That's it for episode 3. I guess would now be the time that we would actually crown you as an understably minded folk.
Knight him?
Now that you've You can put your own hat back on, and we'll call it good.
Perfect. Welcome.
All right. Yeah. One of us. One of us.
Hey, let's go, Rick! Man, those
fans
Wysocki
are
fans,
bad,
man.
they're
They're everywhere.
We got to go
everywhere.
take care of that. Thank you, everybody, for listening.